I am chasing, what am I saying?
No.
I'm chasing any words that make sense in conjunction with one another. Hey, we're here.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're back. We have been pretty much. We've been ghosting.
We've been resurrected.
That's true. I went in for a surprise appendectomy surgery, which was so fun.
So fun.
Your house
appendix was
started to cry from the roof.
It did, that's true.
Yeah, your house was so sad for me.
It was so sad for you.
Yeah.
It was in mourning.
Yeah.
True mourning.
So
I painted my whole house black for you. Isn't that
so
so
nice. Put a little veil over it.
Yeah, we've had a weird time. We've had a weird little time. Who is this sitting here in front of me?
A woman without an appendix. Do not bully me, please. So because life has been insane, pretty much all of our plans have been like into the trash.
I would say yeeted.
Just
into the void.
I mean, technically, we read In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune.
That is true.
That was gonna be our June book.
And June, as you know, is gone. This is kind of like gonna serve as a check-in video,
Yes.
a mid-year, hey, how's it been going? How's your reading been going? What books have you loved? What books haven't you loved? And I think my theme for the year is like books that are tepid, like kind of like, that was fine. One that I know stood out to me at the time was Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. But in trying to like recall how I felt about it, I was like, what even happened?
I feel that way often about thrillers, where I will be like, this was so fun, and I like close a book and my brain deletes the whole thing immediately, and I'm like, it was fun, but I can only recall general vibes.
That's interesting that you say that, because I feel like with thrillers, like even something like Survive the Night as an example, which we read like way last year, I could tell you the plot of that right now, right? Whereas I'm like, this Red Queen book, I'm like, you can't?
What happened in that book?
I recall Red Queen being like, it's like a dystopian kind of vibe. So I'm a dystopian girly. And so I was so thrilled to read a book that was like, Hunger Games-y, right? That's like, I feel like one of the book series that like really got me like into reading. I remember like not skipping university classes, okay? For legal reasons, I wasn't skipping university classes, but I did two things in university, and it was play World of Warcraft between wangers, because that's where the power was.
Okay.
And go up to the very top floor where the nice sunshine was and sit on the ground and read the Hunger Games. That's like the only two things that I did. So I'm like always craving for that.
No classes.
If any of my students are watching this, I know lots, okay? Hunger Games, I have been chasing that feeling for a long time. So anytime that I pick up any dystopian book, I'm like, this is gonna be it, man. Yeah. This is gonna be it. So I go in almost with this sort of like, maybe I'm giving a book like a little bit more leeway than it maybe deserves even. Like I remember when I read Divergent and I was like, this slaps! And then the second book I was like, does this slap?
Has anything ever slapped?
I do have this second book, but I haven't picked it up. So like, did I love it that much? I don't know. Like, was I so itching for the second part of it? Like I think about like Six of Crows, and when I finished off Six of Crows, I literally drove to the bookstore immediately upon finishing the first book. I feel like a lot of my feelings are very like
lukewarm.
Very lukewarm. Yeah.
I have a couple books that I really, really enjoyed. I'm gonna start off with If You Could See the Sun by Anne Liang. So this is a YA magical realism with like, I'd say a romance subplot. The premise being that our main character is this girl who feels kind of invisible in her day-to-day life. She's struggling with like cultural expectations of herself, both at home and then at her fancy prep school. She's feeling like she can never do quite enough to like beat her academic rival. She's just constantly feeling invisible. And then one day she turns invisible. She's able to be invisible. And she's like, well, I don't know what to do about this. I will go to my academic rival, who's like also like the son of a business mogul. And she creates a business with him where she collects secrets from her classmates that other classmates pay a fee for.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to read this book.
It's really
interesting.
It's really fun. It toes the line between really lighthearted but still having like a lot of substance underneath it. I love a YA book. And also like the subplot of academic rivals to lovers. Oh,
That's your vibe. That's totally your vibe. One that we read really recently that we both really loved was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. M.L.
Rio.
This is why I'm like M.R. Leo.
Mamma mia!
One of the books we really, really loved was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. We both read this, me more recently than you did.
Yeah, I read it in March.
So the concept is that there's 7 friends that are going to theater school.
It's like Shakespeare specific.
Yeah, it's like a pretty
prestigious,
highbrow kind of like Shakespeare school, bougie Shakespeare school.
Yeah.
And so these 7 actors, thespians, if you will, are going to school together, and there is some like obvious tension right from the beginning up until the point where one of them is found dead.
Yes.
And the book is kind of like unraveling who done it. It's interesting. I don't know that it reads like a normal who done it though.
No, it doesn't. It's like categorized in, I guess if you go to like an Indigo, it's just like on the fiction shelves. But when I put it into Storygraph, I categorized it as thriller, and I've seen other people categorize it in other ways, and it's just this weird amalgamation of all of those things.
Definitely.
Yeah,
and I don't know that it's like, there are some moments where I was like reading with bated breath, but I don't know that it felt like a specifically a thriller either. But it was very, very cool.
Yes.
So beautifully written.
Oh my gosh, the prose in that story is so good. It was very like atmospheric. The writing itself felt Shakespearean on its own.
Definitely. Like even if you take out all the actual Shakespearean references, it was very beautiful to read. It also made me think, I might actually like dark academia, because I really enjoyed it, and I really had an interest in every character. There were lots of points in time where I literally gasped.
Yes.
Because
the literal last 5 words of this book.
Yes.
I was like, what?
It was like so good. I would say probably it might be my favorite book so far this year. This book launched me into my Shakespeare era. Yeah. So I'm starting to go through Shakespeare stuff, which is pretty cool. I started with A Midsummer Night's Dream. I really haven't touched any Shakespeare plays since school, and I don't remember like a lick of it, and I know the plot of Romeo and Juliet mostly because I play The Sims. Midsummer Night's Dream is so funny. So the concept, if you haven't read it, it follows this totally complicated love square, I guess. Hermia loves Lysander, and Demetrius wants to marry Hermia, and Hermia's dad approves of Demetrius and doesn't approve of Lysander, but Hermia wants to run away with Lysander. Meanwhile, Helena is in love with Demetrius, but Demetrius is in love with Hermia. And so there's this kind of like, nonsense. It's just nonsense. In a sort of other scene, we see a group of actors preparing a play to perform for the king, ? And then sort of in the background, we have the king of the fairies. The queen of the fairies has like a little servant boy, and the king wants him, and the queen is like, no, you can't have him. And he's like, I'm gonna trick you. And so he gets his little fairy assistant servant boy Puck to play a trick on her by putting this like basically juice in her eyes while she's sleeping that makes her fall in love with the first person / living thing that she sees. And it ends up that I'm like, this is tons of spoilers, but listen, if you're late to Shakespeare, I don't know what to tell you.
You're 400 years late.
She wakes up, and the first thing that she sees is one of these actors wearing like a donkey's head. So she's like in love with this half donkey man. Puck ends up kind of like accidentally putting the potion onto both of the men's eyes, like Demetrius and Lysander, but then they both see Helena. And so they're both in love with Helena, and Hermia's like, what the hell? A moment ago, I had 2 men pining for me, and now I have none. What is going on? It can be like a little bit jarring almost to read Shakespearean language today, because some of the insults are the funniest I've ever read in my life. Lysander calls Demetrius an inconstant and spotted man. Helena, when she finds out that these men are like after her, she's like, this is a prank. She's like, you're pranking me. You're pranking me, Demetrius, and you're pranking me, Lysander, and Hermia's in on it too. And she's like so peeved. And there's like some really funny insults that come out of that. Like some of the men who very recently loved Hermia are like, shut up, you little acorn, you little nut. It was such a nice break from some of the other stuff that I've been reading. Right now I'm reading my 22nd book this year, which is like weak comparatively to last year.
Okay.
I didn't expect that the first book that would make me like truly laugh out loud, like belly laugh out loud, would be Shakespeare. So those are my thoughts on Midsummer Night's Dream. 5 stars. Read it. It's funny. It's funny and it's short. Or else Shakespeare will come back from the dead and he'll
just read it to you. That's all.
I was gonna say he'll be under your floorboards, but that's Edgar Allan Poe, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. Have you heard this is unrelated, but have you heard the conspiracy theory that like Shakespeare is alive today in Anne Hathaway's husband?
I have heard this, yes.
and like Shakespeare's actual wife's name was Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
So he like wrote in a journal or something when he was alive that he was like, I will find you. I don't know why I'm typing, like as if he had a little computer.
Shakespeare's just sitting there like, tick, 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 tick.
Jeez.
He's an iPad baby.
He's an iPad baby. Anyway, back to reality. What's
there
next?
goes gravity. Oh, there goes Rabbit. Choked he so bad, but he won't give up that easy. No, he won't have it.
Does he say rabbit?
Yeah, it was like a nickname. My next one is A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. I read the first 2 books in the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy last year, so this was like me finishing the trilogy, and I just adored it. I adored the whole thing. I love V.E. Schwab. I think she's like a beautiful author. She writes books so lush. And the 3rd book in this trilogy did not disappoint me. I think it was one of my first reads of the year, and I was like, ooh, it's gonna be a good reading year, and then it was like a bunch of pretty okay books after that.
Oh, that's actually set the bar so high.
I know, but Threads of Power is coming out soon, so I'm just very excited.
That's awesome.
So I wanted to mention it, but it's a 3rd in a trilogy, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail.
Yeah, you have to like start at the beginning. For like somebody who is maybe wanting to pick up this trilogy as a whole, do you want to give just like a brief like what the setting / concept is?
It's an adult fantasy series with our main character Kel, who's an Antari, which means he can travel between these 4 different worlds that exist, and they all kind of overlap in London. It sounds really complicated, but it actually reads a lot less complicated than it feels when you're reading the back. Like V.E. Schwab does a great job of explaining it. In the kind of normal, non-magical world, he meets Lila Bard, who is a thief and just like an overall punk-ass pirate woman. She's great.
She's so funny.
And they end up back in Kel's magical London. The whole series goes through magical competitions. It goes through betrayal and politics of all these different worlds, and one world trying to kind of take power from other worlds. It's so good, and yeah, I just encourage you guys to read it if you like fantasy novels. And then my last one is All of Us Villains, The Duology by Amanda Foody and C.L. Herman. These are also fantasy books, kind of fantasy, kind of dystopian, and they, I would say, are young adult novels, but at the older end of young adult. The books are set in this small town where for generations, 7 families have essentially voluntold one of their children to go into this magical tournament. The tournament is to the death, and whoever wins controls all the high magic that the town has. So it's a very powerful position to have. Somebody writes a book and outs this tournament. So now the whole world is watching to see what is going to happen. Ends up being these 7 characters who are all, you know, creating alliances and betraying each other, and all these complicated dynamics at play that shift constantly. I felt like when I was reading the series, I kept being like, okay, Isabel is the antagonist, and this is what she's gonna do. And then like somebody else would like betray Isabel, and I'd be like, okay, they're the antagonist, and this is what's gonna happen. I'd be like, okay, obviously Gavin is the antagonist because he's just the worst. And then like by the end, you're like, oh my gosh, they are all villains. Just very interesting character dynamics. The beginning is pretty slow. I know you started it and struggled with the beginning, but once you hit kind of where the tournament actually starts and they're not all just like walking around prepping and you're getting all the exposition of what it is so good, so fast paced, and I pretty much never guessed what was coming next.
Yeah, I haven't quite gotten as far as the tournament beginning. They are, like you said, kind of just walking around prepping at the beginning. And I just think my brain is not quite there yet.
Yeah, your brain is also walking around prepping.
My brain is walking around prepping. I feel like this whole year I've like really needed something to like leap out of me and like grab me by the chest, you know? Like I need a book that fully ropes me in like pretty soon.
Yeah, chapter one,
I'm like, let's go. My theme so far for this year has been like books that I actually was quite excited for and had a high expectation for that didn't land. That was kind of like where I maybe wanted to land a little bit more just for my own personal reading this year, because I know you had said like, hey, let's bring some books forward that we really, really loved and have a lot of feelings about. And I feel like even the ones I really loved, I don't have a lot of feelings about. Yeah. But I have a lot of feelings about the ones I didn't love.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about them.
So, In the Lives of Puppets was one that didn't land
really
for
high
me.
hopes.
Super high hopes. And it's because Under the Whispering Door and Cerulean Sea are so good.
Yeah.
Like will go down in my mind as like some of my favorite books that I've ever read. Like Under the Whispering Door is so like it just like tears your heart in half.
Yeah.
It's so, and so like cozy but simultaneously just like a deep sadness.
Yeah.
And then like House in the Cerulean Sea is like the coziest found family book imaginable. Like it's so good.
Yeah.
And it's so funny and so cute, and it was just like everything that I wanted it to be. So when TJ Klune came out with a new book this year, and I was like, robots, Pinocchio retelling, sweet old little man who makes a little son in the forest, and like it's also supposed to be like a found family kind of vibe, and then it didn't land the way that I wanted it to. I was like, oh, what a drag.
I think I often struggle with retellings in general, and I think I talked about this a bit in my ACOTAR video, but just the idea that it's like, there's almost nothing that's gonna happen that is surprising to you, but also you want it to somehow grip you in a way, or to feel exactly how the original thing felt, and so there's just no winning.
There's like no place where it can measure up to all of those things, or even one of those things exactly right.
Because it's like you want it to be new and exciting, but you want it to be nostalgic, but you want it to like bring you back to when you were a kid and you're watching Pinocchio, but you're also, 30 years old and you're like, okay, like
Pinocchio is so scary.
Pinocchio's whack.
It's really scary.
There's like, the characters themselves are lovable, but I feel like the story, about halfway through, is like, all right, let's go somewhere.
I think there were like plot points that I felt were kind of needless. One thing I really didn't like about the book was how needlessly sexual it was all the time.
Yeah.
Did you find that?
Yeah. I think TJ Klune like set out to remind us, that this character is asexual and that's okay and all this, but then when you have characters like Nurse Ratched who are so like face value, I'm gonna say things, it just ends up happening repeatedly, and I was like, this is a lot.
It was really excessive.
I'm like, I as a reader, I understand that your character is asexual, and he's explained it pretty in depth near the beginning of the book, so it's like you get it, even if you didn't get it, you kind of understand now.
Yeah.
We don't have to keep re-explaining it through.
Yeah, well, and it almost treats the reader like they're like a bit of an idiot. Yeah. Like it's so many sexual jokes throughout the book that I was like, oh my gosh. Like, this is like not necessary, and it takes away from some of that like cozy kind of feeling that I was maybe craving from the book. It wasn't the vibe for me. I was thinking like as I first started it, I was like, this is going to be a 5-star for sure, because it was like quite emotional at the beginning when you go into the first chapter and you find out, that he was like dropped squirrel.
Wow, you're literally the dog from Up. Congratulations.
Oh, but look, he's so nice.
We have really small ones. They live under our front steps, and they come out and they snuggle puddle on our front steps.
Oh, he's gonna fall. Okay, hold on. Have you seen, this is a, oh, jeez Louise. A friend, he's coming to watch our YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, I love him so much. What are we even talking about? But I was like, this is gonna be so good. And then I was just like, as the book kept going on, I was like, 3-star, oh, maybe 4-star? No, 3-star. Like, it was just like kind of not what I wanted or expected, which is a drag. And a lot of people, like, it seems to be pretty widely loved online, which means that you just can't trust anybody.
That goes into, I have, this was my year of allowing myself to DNF books, and not just pushing through for the sake of having read a book. And I DNF'd both Zodiac Academy and the First Deadly Education book, both of which have like a decent following online, both of which from the, first third of the book that I read of each of them might be the worst written books I've ever read. They were really exposition-y, and the main characters were so like insufferable, and so like in Deadly Education the main character kept being like, everything is stupid. It's like, shut up, dude. Zodiac Academy is about two twins who you might as well not have twins because they're the exact same person, except one has like a leather jacket and a motorcycle and one doesn't.
That's lazy writing.
It's lazy writing. And then they're like, oh, it's because they're Geminis. I'm like, I don't care. I struggled through those first thirds before I was like, you know what, I'm done.
This is not for me.
This is not for me.
I still struggle with the concept of, sorry, he has a pine cone now. I just died. Oh, he's so nice. I still struggle with the concept of DNFing things. I want to be like strong and be like, yeah, I'm just going to like stop reading this. But especially if I make it halfway through something, I'm like, you know, I want to see this through because it's time that I've spent reading the first half. And I want to at least be able to call it a number. That's fair. On my whatever. Yeah. And I know that that's something that you're like not really caring as much about this year. Yeah. But I'm a competitive baby girl.
See, so. I think even if I go back to tracking numbers hardcore, I think I'll still let myself DNF books, because if I'm reading a book that I want to DNF, I'm reading it really slowly because I'm dreading reading.
Well, and that brings me to the other book that I want to talk about today. And I hate to do this because it is also a widely loved book. Yeah. But I really struggled with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. So the idea of this book is it kind of follows two childhood friends that kind of like lose touch, and then they re-meet in university, and then they decide to make a video game together. Yeah. And it kind of follows the very slow progression of like their life over many years. And it kind of just made me realize that maybe I just don't like that kind of a paced book. That's more just like fiction, generally speaking.
Yeah. Just like contempt fiction.
And it's over like a big long span of time. And it's slow and kind of like, it can feel really human for that reason. Yeah. I will say there are some beautiful quotes from this book that I've like tagged that I really loved. But overall, gosh, it took me so long to read this book. I really need to care about the characters. Some people say that this Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow book is like very human because the characters are all pretty unlikable. Yeah. But because the characters are all pretty unlikable, I don't like them. Yeah. So I don't want to read about them. I don't know. It was just like slow. It was one that, because of its subject matter and the idea of like video game development and stuff, really appealed to me. My hopes were really high, and unfortunately,
that's fair.
It just kind of crashed and burned a little bit for me. This year has been weird.
I read From Lukov with Love, which I have a whole video about how much I hated it.
So and it's quite funny, so go watch it.
I'm not going to go into detail on that one, but that is the worst book I read this year. I changed my story graph rating to 0.25. Wow. Because that's the lowest I can do while it still shows up stars.
That's bleak, man. Yeah. It won't be something I'm reading.
Unless you want to hate read.
No. We could do a hate read each other's hate reads video.
I don't want to put you through that.
I'd make you read It Happened One Summer.
Ah!
Yeah. Do we have any other thoughts?
I don't think so.
I've never had a thought.
That's,
in my lifetime.
Relatable. Do you have any things that you're remotely looking forward to, reading-wise?
Yes.
In this back half?
So, because of my love for Shakespeare, stuff that has recently re-emerged, I'm looking forward to reading more Shakespeare, probably specifically comedies. I do want to, I know you have some feelings about Sarah J. Maas, but I do want to read Throne of Glass. And I have like the first 6. Yeah. 5, 6. I have a lot of them already. Yeah. And the plan is to start those this summer.
Yeah. I have thoughts about Akatar and Akamath. I can't speak to the rest of them. I just thought they were fine.
Yeah. Tepid. Yes. I like that word a lot. I should stop. I should pick another word. What's another word for tepid? Milky. No.
I have milky thoughts about this.
Milky thoughts about
this. Baby.
I've asked for recommendations kind of on Instagram and stuff like that too, but seriously, if you have recommendations for something that will blow my frickin' socks off.
It's a wild ride from moment one.
From moment one, please comment below. I'm begging you. I'm thirsty for a book that like rocks me, you know? I also just recently got the second secret novel from Brandon Sanderson's 4 secret novel series. One. Yeah, Frugal Wizard's Guide to something.
To wizarding.
To surviving medieval
wizards.
England? Something. It's the second secret novel in his series. I also do have a beautiful copy of Fourth Wing with the sprayed edges that I'm looking forward to reading as well. Everybody has said that this is a sock knocking book. Is that a phrase?
I've never heard of that.
A sock knocking book.
Sounds sexual. I'm avoiding Fourth Wing at this point. I just don't think it can possibly be what the world has led me to believe it will be. I've also had a few people reach out to me who have read it and been like, I don't think you'll like this book.
There are things where we don't meet perfectly on books. There are lots of interjections that like don't line up, like things that you've read that you love and you're like, Lauren wouldn't like this. Or whatever.
For me, I'm going to, hopefully in the back half of this year, pick up Yellowface by Rebecca Kwong, which was Babel was like my favorite read last year, so I'm excited for Yellowface. I also want to read the Gideon the Ninth series this year as well, which sounds like a very bizarre series. I'm also going to try and pick up Neil Shusterman's Scythe series. Again, I loved Unwind, so it seems like a natural jump.
Apart from reading, what other summer plans do you have? What are you going to do?
I'm going to stain my fence. I'm going to finish my kitchen. I'm so bored. I mean, I'm going to California.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's very fun. It's more fun than any of the plans
It's
I
true.
have this summer.
So we're going to California. We have a friend who lives there, so we're doing that for a week. And otherwise, it's just like lots of playing Zelda. And I'm going to start Ace Attorney Chronicles. I'm so excited.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, what about you?
Also boring. Not much happening up here. Not much happening
Anywhere.
Not much happening at all. So just like reading stuff, video game stuff, and hopefully launching my reading into the stratosphere. Recommend some stuff to us, please.
I have a lot of books on my TBR actually. Only recommend things to Lauren.
I'm very easily swayed. So even though I do have a lot of things on my TBR, I'm very like, ooh, this new shiny thing. I need things that like punch me right in the soul. You know?
I feel like we both just need something good. A good read. It needs to happen for us.
A chicken soup for the soul book.
Wow. Okay, next video. We're reading every chicken soup for the soul book that's ever been published. Check in next month, in which we will have definitely read hundreds of books.
Actually, though, on that note, a more serious thought, I'm very excited for what we have planned next. Come back.
Yeah, return. Or else.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Call your grandma. tell her to watch us.
Yeah. Does she have YouTube?
Also, how's she doing? Check in on her.
You better call your grandma.
Yeah, or we'll call her for you, and we will take.
Who are you gonna call?
Your grandma!
Anyway, thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching. We love you guys. See you next time. Bye!
Mwah. Dale, ridiculous chipmunk name.
Yeah.
Alvin, ridiculous chipmunk name. Theodore?
Very cute.
Very cute name.
Yes.
I approve.